Hello everyone, welcome to my lecture series of electromagnetic fields. We will discuss different theories, phenomena and numerical solution of different cases in this series. I hope this series will give a fruitful outcome to physics scholars or engineering students. So in the previous video of this lecture series, we have seen the boundary conditions between conductor and dielectric medium. To review that content, please click on the I button. In today's video, we are going to discuss the boundary conditions between two different dielectric mediums. And we are also going to discuss the law of refraction in the case of two different dielectrics. So, for the boundary condition, as we know that whenever the electric field is passing from one medium to another medium, there exists some change in its intensity or its direction at the interface of both the medium, and the study of the condition at such interface surface is called the boundary condition. And the boundary condition, depending on the nature of the medium, we can classify it into two parts. The first is boundary condition between the conductor and free space that we have already discussed in our previous video, and the second is boundary condition between two different dielectric mediums that we are going to discuss in this video. So let us begin. Now, to study the boundary conditions for electrostatics, Maxwell's equations are required, and along with the Maxwell's equation, we need to have some understanding of the properties of conductor, properties of dielectric, and we should also have some understanding of selecting appropriate Gaussian surface. See, ultimately, the laws are very globally defined, and it is very true in a general sense. But whenever we need to prove something with the help of derivation, at that time our wisdom regarding the selection of closed path, regarding the selection of closed Gaussian surface is very important as far as the calculation effort and calculation time is concerned. Fine. So if we can prove some particular thing with less effort and time, then it is the best way to do it. Okay. Now the equations required are the closed line integration of E bar dot dl bar equals to 0. So this is our first equation. And the second equation that we are going to need is the closed surface integration of d bar dot ds bar equals to q enclosed. So this first equation is nothing but the condition of conservative field. And as we know that electrostatic field is a conservative one, we can utilize this equation for the any required derivation. Then the second equation is nothing but the mathematical representation of Gauss's law, and both are very general equation for the study of electromagnetics. Now, the tangential and normal components of intensity and density are also required. Okay, so basically what we are going to do, we have selected two different dielectric. So as you can see, we have two mediums. In first medium, I have selected a particular dielectric with absolute permittivity of epsilon 1. Then for the second medium, the dielectric strength or the absolute permittivity of second medium is epsilon 2, and this dark yellow line is the boundary between these two dielectric medium. Okay, so by studying the boundary condition, we are basically interested to determine the tangential component of field intensity and flux density. Also, we are equally interested to find the normal component of flux density and normal component of field intensity. Fine. So to determine the tangential component, we are going to use the equation or say condition of conservative field, that is closed line integration of E bar dot dl bar equals to 0. And to determine the normal components of intensity and flux density, we are going to use the Gauss's law. We have already performed this in case of the boundary condition between conductor and dielectric. Fine. Then also we are going to
perform the same very deeply and step by step in this video also. Fine, because there are some changes and we need to accommodate those changes for the derivation of today's lecture. Okay, so here, irrespective of conductor, we will have rho v non-zero, because in dielectric medium the volume charge density is not zero, as well as E2 bar is also not equal to 0 and D2 bar is also not equal to 0. So this is the very fundamental change between the boundary condition between conductor and dielectric and between two different dielectric. Fine. So here nothing inside the medium 2 will be 0. We will have some non-zero charge density, we will have some non-zero field intensity and non-zero flux density as well. Okay, now the selection criteria of a closed path. See, if we want to perform this closed line integration, then we must assume some closed path, fine, on which we will do the integration. So to select a closed path, we have assumed a rectangular closed path ABCD, as you can see, with an elementary width of delta W and elementary height of delta H. We have put this closed path such that its horizontal lengths, that is AB and DC, horizontal lengths AB and DC, obviously both the horizontal lengths will be parallel to each other. So these horizontal lengths must be parallel with the tangential component of field intensity, and vertical length, that is AD and BC, are parallel with the normal component of field intensity. So we have kept this rectangular closed path such that its horizontal lengths are parallel with the tangential component of field and vertical lengths are parallel with the normal component of field intensity. Fine. Also, we have taken this closed path such that its half height lies in the medium 1 and another half height lies in the medium 2. So delta H by 2 lies in the dielectric with permittivity epsilon 1 and another delta H by 2 height lies in the medium where permittivity is epsilon 2. Fine. And satisfying these conditions, we can start our derivation. Here one more thing that we need to keep in mind, that the intensity in medium 1 can be written as the vector sum of its tangential and normal component. And same way, the intensity in medium 2 can be written as the vector sum of its tangential component plus normal component. Okay, so ultimately we will be determining the value of intensity in both the mediums, but for that we will first determine the tangential and normal components of both the intensity, and then we will vectorially sum it up to determine E1 bar and E2 bar. Okay, so moving further, first we will use the equation, that is closed line integration of E bar dot dl bar. So we can divide the closed line integration into integration of lines as integration from A to B E bar dot dl bar plus integration from B to C E bar dot dl bar plus integration from C to D E bar dot dl bar plus integration from D to A E bar dot dl bar, which is equals to 0. Fine. Now, assuming the elementary height of the closed line path to be very small, that is, if delta h is approximately equals to 0, then we can say the integration of two vertical heights, that is integration from b to c e bar dot dl bar and the integration from d to a e bar dot dl bar will be equals to 0, and the reason behind it is dl bar is approximately equals to 0. So these two terms, the second and fourth term for the integration, are turn out to be 0 if we assume the elementary height of this closed path is very small. Fine. So the only term that need to be determined is integration from a to b e bar dot dl bar. Now here we have kept the length AB such that it is parallel with the tangential component, and for the length AB the only acting component of field is E tan 1, and the integration from A to B dl bar is nothing but delta W. Here angle is 0, so whenever you will factorize this equation as magnitude of E bar, magnitude of dl bar, cos theta. Fine. Here we have kept the closed path such that the tangential component of intensity is parallel to the horizontal length, so it will make the angle 0. Fine. And that particular assumption of keeping our closed path in that particular manner is only due to the easiness in the calculation. Fine. So it will turn out to be E tan 1 into delta W. Fine. Similarly, for the second integration, which is integration from C to D E bar dot dl bar. Now here we are traveling from C to D. Okay, so the angle, so if we factorize this equation, then it will be modulus of E bar modulus of dl bar cos theta, where theta is equals to 180 degree and cos 180 degree is nothing but minus 1. Okay, so we can write minus 1 multiplied. Now for the line segment CD, the acting component of CD is the field intensity due to in the second medium. So here we can write E tan 2, and the integration from C to D dl will be delta W. So we can write minus E tan 2 delta W. Now putting both these values, that is integration from C to D E bar dot dl bar and integration from A to B E bar dot dl bar in the first equation, so we can write close integration from E bar dot dl bar equals to E tan 1 delta W minus E tan 2 delta W, which is equals to 0. So we can write E tan 1 equals to E tan 2. So this is the first relationship that we got at the boundary condition. And if this is true, that is the tangential component of field intensity at the boundary in both the dielectric mediums remains same, and if it is so, then we can say the field intensity is continuous across the boundary. So in exam some examiner may ask you that prove that the intensity is continuous at the boundary of two dielectric mediums, then we can use this particular derivation, and we need to derive E101 equals to E102, which in turn shows that intensity is continuous at the boundary of two dielectric mediums. Fine. So for the important note, we can write the intensity is continuous at the boundary of two dielectrics. Now as we have E101 equals to E102, now we have a relation E bar equals to epsilon E bar. We can use this relation, and determine the relation between tangential component. So here we can also write E bar equals to D bar divided by epsilon. So E101 will be equal to D101 divided by, now the permittivity to be selected of that particular medium. So for medium 1 the permittivity is epsilon 1, and similarly E102 can be written as D102 divided by permittivity of second medium, that is epsilon 2. And if both the tangential component of intensity are equal, I am writing the remaining derivation in the top right corner, then we can write D101 divided by, now in place of epsilon 1 we can write epsilon r1 into epsilon 0 is equals to D102 divided by, in place of epsilon 2 we will write epsilon r2 into epsilon 0. So we can write D101 divided by D102 equals to epsilon r1 divided by epsilon r2. So we can say that the ratio of tangential component of density is same as the ratio of relative permittivity of two mediums, and as the tangential component are related with some ratio, we can say that the flux density is not continuous or it is discontinuous across the boundary. Fine. So these two relationship gives us the idea about the tangential component of intensity and density, and it also gives us idea about the continuity of intensity and density at the boundary. Fine. So as far as the continuity is concerned, field intensity is continuous across the boundary and density is discontinuous across the boundary of two different dielectrics. Now the remaining discussion, that is regarding the normal component. So for the normal component we are taking a closed surface which can be used as a Gaussian surface. So it is very preferable to have a cylindrical Gaussian surface, because if we take any other surface, say for example if I take a parallelopiped as a Gaussian surface, then what will happen? Then we need to calculate everything for 6 different surfaces, because this parallelopiped is having 6 different surfaces. Fine. Whereas if you take the cylinder, then you can calculate the things only for 3 surfaces: a top surface, a bottom surface, and a lateral surface. Fine. So it is very convenient to calculate dot product or cross product or any other arithmetic or calculus in the cylindrical shape. That is why we are considering the cylinder as a Gaussian surface. Fine. One may also have an argument that why don't we consider the spherical surface? Now the spherical surface is only helpful where the symmetricity of field is there. Fine. For the non-uniform or the field which are for which we have no idea about their symmetricity, spherical surface are not of that much useful. Okay, so the best possible or the best suitable surface selection is the cylindrical surface. So we have selected a surface such that it has a elementary cross-sectional area of delta S and elementary height delta H. We have also put this surface such that half the height remains in the first medium and another half the height remains in the second medium. Okay, so moving further, now having the cylindrical Gaussian surface, the closed surface integration of d bar dot ds bar can be divided into three integration, that is integration of top surface d bar dot ds bar plus integration of bottom surface d bar dot ds bar plus integration of lateral surface d bar dot ds bar. Fine. Now for the lateral surface, again we are assuming the elementary height of the Gaussian surface very small, that is delta H tends to 0. And if it is so, then we can write the lateral surface integration of d bar dot ds bar equals to 0, because for the lateral surface integration of ds bar equals to 2 pi r delta H, and if the delta H is 0, that implies the ds integration of ds is also 0, and that will make the whole term 0. Okay, so we have assuming that the height of this Gaussian surface is very small, and so that this third term in the integration turns out to be 0. The only non-zero terms that should be calculated is the integration for top surface and the integration for bottom surface. So for the top surface, d bar dot ds bar. Now the acting component of density for the top surface is dn, and the integration of ds will be delta s. Here also, as we know that the dn, sorry, over here the density is having a direction of plus az bar, and delta s is also having a direction of az bar. So this dot product, the cos theta will become 1 because theta is equals to 0 in this case. Fine. While in for the bottom surface, the dn will be in plus az bar direction and ds will be in negative az bar direction. So for the bottom surface, theta will be 180 degree. Here for top surface, theta is 0 degree. Okay, so that is why we can write dn into delta s. For the bottom surface, with the same logic, we can write d bar dot ds bar. So again, one more thing, the normal component of regarding the medium 1. Fine. For the bottom surface, the normal component of density but in the medium 2, so dn2 delta s, and as theta is equals to 180 degree, cos theta equals to minus 1, so this will be multiplied by minus 1, and finally the closed surface integration of d bar dot ds bar will be equals to dn1 delta s minus dn2 delta s equals to q enclosed. Now after calculating up to this step, we need to determine the right hand side of the equation, that is the enclosed charge. Okay, so determining the right hand side of the equation, we can write dn1 delta s minus dn2 delta s equals to q. Now q is nothing but rho s into delta s, and doing so we will have dn1 minus dn2 multiplied by delta s. So we have kept delta s as a common factor from left hand side of the equation. Here we are having rho s into delta s, so delta s will get cancel out. Finally we are having dn1 minus dn2 equals to rho s. But for the insulator there is an absence of free charge, so no free charge are present in the insulator and no charge will be gathered at the surface of boundary, and having so the rho s, that is surface charge density, will be 0 in case of insulator. Fine. Why it is 0? Because unavailability of free charge. Okay, so we are having an equation dn1 minus dn2 equals to 0. See, the derivation is quite easy, but we must know the reason behind this 0. Fine. And each and everything that we have assumed is for some reason. Fine. So we need to understand the requirement as well as the conditions that we are adopting for any derivation. Okay, so having the relation dn1 minus dn2 equals to 0, we can write dn1 is equals to dn2. So this is the very important third finding of this lecture, that is the normal component in media of flux density in both the medium are equal. So we can say that density, or say normal component of density, are equal, and having so the d bar is continuous at the boundary of two different dielectrics. Fine. And we have an relation dn1 equals to epsilon r1 en1, which is equals to dn2, which is nothing but epsilon r2 en2. So therefore we can write en1 upon en2 equals to epsilon r2 divided by epsilon r1. So this is the fourth thing. So the normal component of the intensity are related with the ratio of relative permittivities of both the medium, and as they are inversely proportional to the relative permittivity. Fine. So the final fourth thing that we have gained from this discussion is that the tangential component of intensity are equal. That is our first finding. The second finding was the ratio of tangential component of density are equal to the ratio of relative permittivity of both the mediums. That is our second finding. The third finding is the normal component of density in both the mediums are equal, and the fourth finding is this one: the ratio of the normal component of intensity are inversely proportional to the relative permittivity of particular mediums. Okay, so these are the four required relationships by which we can determine the magnitude of intensity and density at any point for such system where two dielectrics are interfacing each other. Now moving further, for the refraction of flux density at the boundary. So we have kept a zoom in image of two different medium having absolute permittivity as epsilon 1 and epsilon 2. Now, as we know that the normal component, let us list out the relationship. So the relationship was the tangential component are equal, normal component of density are equal, tangential component of density, if we take the ratio, then it is equals to the permittivity or relative permittivity of both the mediums, and if we take ratio of normal component of intensity, then it will be equal to the inverse ratio of relative permittivity. Fine. So all the discussion will be depending on these four findings. So normal component of density are equal. So we can describe for the second medium, this is the normal component dn2, and for the medium 1, the normal component is dn1. Fine. Then these are the tangential component of flux density. So the tangential component are related as per the relative permittivity of both the medium. So we can say here epsilon 1 is greater than epsilon 2 because the tangential component in medium 1 is having the longer length with reference to the tangential component in medium 2. Okay, so adding these two components, that is tangential and normal component, we are having the direction of d2 bar, that is in the second medium the direction of density, and in the first medium the direction of density. So we can witness some deflection from its original direction. Fine. So we can have angle theta 1 in medium 1 and an angle theta 2 in medium 2. Fine. So from the boundary, the direction of the flux density has been changed. Okay. Now if we take a ratio, we can define tan theta 1 as the ratio of the opposite side, which is nothing but d tan 1, divided by the neighboring side, which is d n1. Similarly, tan theta 2 can be defined as the opposite side, which is d tan 2, divided by the neighboring side, which is d n2. And if we take the ratio of tan theta 1 by tan theta 2, then we can write d tan 1 divided by d n1 multiplied by d n2 divided by d tan 2. Now we have d n1 equals to d n2, so we can cancel out these two terms, and d tan 1 upon d tan 2 is nothing but epsilon r1 upon epsilon r2. Fine. Which is called the law of refraction. So we can find out the angle of displacement for the flux density when it travels from the one dielectric medium to another dielectric medium, and this angle of deflection depends on the value of relative permittivity of both the medium. Fine. Furthermore, if we want to determine the magnitude of d bar in region 2, then we can write, see here, if we can apply the Pythagoras theorem for this right angle triangle. So we can write d2 square equals to d tan 2 square plus d n2 square. Okay, Now d tan 2 is nothing but d2 sine theta 2. So d2 sine theta 2 square plus, and dn2 is nothing but d2 cos theta 2 whole square. Fine. Here dn1 and dn2 both are equal, so we can write d1 cos theta 1 square, because dn1 and dn2 are equal. Okay. In place of d2 sine theta 2, we can write d1 sine theta 1 multiplied by epsilon 2 divided by epsilon 1 whole square. So this relation that we have just derived as a law of refraction. Okay, so we have taken directly. Ultimately, we are trying to represent the d2 in terms of d1. Okay, so doing so, we will have d1 square into bracket sine theta 1 multiplied by epsilon 2 upon epsilon 1 square plus cos theta 1 square. So d2 can be written as, so taking the square root in both the side, we can write d1 under root cos square theta 1 plus epsilon 2 upon epsilon 1 whole square sine square theta 1. So this is the equation to determine the magnitude of density in second medium if we know its magnitude in the first medium. Okay, so we can directly calculate the magnitude of density. Okay, so the final equation that we got for the density in second medium is d2 equals to d1 square root of cos square theta 1 plus epsilon 2 upon epsilon 1 whole square sine square theta 1. We can also use some similar variable manipulation techniques and derive the magnitude of intensity in medium 2 as E2 equals to E1 multiplied by the square root of sine square theta 1 plus epsilon 1 by epsilon 2 whole square cos square theta 1. So these two are very important equations, and some important points or findings from these two equations can be summarized at d bar is larger in higher permittivity region. So as you can see, if the value of permittivity in the medium 1 is higher, then the magnitude of D will be higher in that region. If the magnitude of permittivity of region 2 will be high, then magnitude of D bar in that particular medium will be high. Fine. So the magnitude of field flux density is directly proportional to the value of its permittivity. Okay. Then we have another finding, that is E bar is larger in lower permittivity region. So the magnitude of intensity is inversely proportional to the value of permittivity of the medium. That is the second important finding. Third thing, the magnitude of density in both the mediums are equal if the theta is 0 degree. So if the theta 1 is 0 degree, then we are having the equal value of the flux density in both the medium. Similarly, the value of field intensity in both the mediums are equal if theta equals to 90 degree. So these four are very important findings which can be discussed from these two equations, and generally dot product is adopted to find the value of these angles. So all the discussion of this boundary condition between two dielectrics are very important as far as the understanding of electrostatics is concerned, as well as the very important question of your exam is also covered in this video. Thank you very much.